Dear learners, welcome back. Now we will be discussing the classification of budgets. Why is it important? Because we have already seen what is a budget, what is the importance of budget, what are the advantages of budget, how budgets are related to NGOs, why NGOs require a specific kind of a budget. But we need to know the classification of budgets. There are different kinds of budget. Though we have studied different types of budgets like capital budget and the operating budgets, but we need to understand the classification based on the time period. So that is why this session is important in understanding different kinds of budget and how they can be prepared and why they are required for an organization, specifically for an NGO. We have seen that budget, when we talk about a budget, it is a kind of a precise statement, and it represents different financial estimates of income and expenditure, and it is prepared for a certain period of time. It is a kind of a quantitative statement and the estimates of future revenues and expenditure. This all we have studied in the previous session. When we talk about the classification of budget, budget can be classified based on the time period, based on the flexibility, and based on the functions of the organization. So there are three bases on which the budgets can be classified. It can be time, it can be flexibility, it can be function. So whatever you basically require, whatever is the requirement of the organization, that decides what kind of a budget the organization should have. When we talk about the classification on the basis of time, it can be classified into three categories basically. It is the long term, basically it is two categories, but there is a specific category that is the current budget. So it is basically, we talk about the two categories, that is the long term budget and the short term budget. Then we add on one category, that is the current budget, that means the present budget, there's something which is running actually. So that is the time period, that is the basis of the time period of classifying the budget. When we talk about the long-term budget, it involves the planning of operations for a period of more than 1 year. Whenever we talk about long-term in management parlance, we always say it is more than 1 year. Whenever we talk about short-term, we always say that it is less than 1 year. Usually the plan is for 5 to 10 years. That is the long-term time in the managerial concept. And it includes the budgeting for process or operations which are supposed to run for many years. And they generally have details of physical quantities or approximate details of estimates due to lack of information about extended future. So long-term budget does have its limitations as well. Due to a longer period of time, such kind of budgets can be affected by adverse events and situations. This is one of the limitations, and therefore it is advisable to supplement the long-term budget with the short-term budget. So when we are planning a certain kind of a budget, or when we are trying to prepare a certain kind of a budget, it is important to have a combination of the long-term budget with the short-term budgets, so that whatever the discrepancies they arise for the long-term budget, that can be curbed for the short-term budget. For example, research and development budget. If you see that a very good example of the vaccine being developed for the COVID-19, that is the research and development budget, that involves the research and development budget. And since it is happening so fast, it has a long-term budget also, and it has a short-term budget also. When we talk about the short-term budget, it is usually prepared for planning the operations for a period of 1 year, and it helps in exercising the control over day-to-day operations of an organization more precisely than the long-term budgets. and they are prepared in detail like monetary values, and that is very important to understand. It is prepared in terms of money. For example, production budget. Say for example, if you are trying to produce something in an NGO, say masks. Mask will require raw material, it will require cloth, it will require elastics, it will require a thread. So to produce those things you require some monetary values. So that is why this becomes a short-term budget. When we talk about the current budget, it is usually prepared for a shorter period of time, not extending beyond a year. That is why we have not included it in 3 types of budget. We always call it as a part of a short-term budget only, though when we describe, we say long-term budget, short-term budget and a current budget. Usually this kind of budget is for a month or a quarter, and it involves adjustment towards current conditions of external environment or different kinds of environment things. Now, other aspect is classification based on the capacity. We talked about the flexibility part in the initial slide. You must have witnessed that we had 3 types of budget. One is the time, basis on the time, and the other was on the basis of flexibility. Now this flexible part comes under the capacity. So budgets can be classified into 2 categories based on the capacity. One is the flexible budget and the other is the fixed budget. So when we talk about different kinds of budgets based on the capacity, we have the fixed budget. If we talk about the fixed budget, it is a budget which is prepared for fixed level of activity. And such budgets remain constant irrespective of the change in the level of activity. They involve fixed cost, that is costs which do not change even if the level of activity is overachieved or underachieved. It is prepared when activities can be predicted with reasonable certainty. And such budgets are not good as a tool for cost control because they are fixed and there is no flexibility involved. When we talk about the flexible budget, such budgets are prepared for flexible level of activities. They are meant to change with the changing level of activities. Usually in projects, when we talk about in NGOs, this level keeps on changing. And they are used to estimate the cost at different levels of activities. And they involve variable costs, semi-variable costs, and of course fixed costs. The costs will increase or decrease with the level of activities, and such budgets are realistic in nature, more realistic in nature, and are useful for cost control, because you know that you have a budget but the spending may be more than the budget or less than the budget. So it is flexible in nature. So classification on basis of functions, when we talk about, they are divided into different activities of the organization, and usually there are 5 activities. One is the cash, the other is the sales, the third is the purchase, fourth is the overhead, and fifth is the production. So these are the different functions where these kind of activities take place, and the budgets are prepared according to these functions. If it is a purchased or direct material budget, such kind of budgets, they include amount of raw material which an organization is supposed to purchase during the budget period. And the budget intends to control the cost of raw material purchased for production and the cost of storage and ordering. The quantity of raw material to be purchased depends upon the quantity of the goods which an organization intends to sell for earning certain kind of profits. Again, the issue comes that if it is an NGO, it is a not-for-profit making organization, how the profits are coming. Even in NGOs, certain kind of investments have to be made, or certain kinds of sales have to be made to keep the organization running. So that is why we are talking about profits here. If it is a sales budget, it contains the estimate of amount of goods to be sold along with the expected selling price per unit. It involves estimating the level of revenue an organization intends to achieve during budget period. and the estimate of quantity to be sold depends upon the level of profit an organization intends to earn. If it is a production budget, it contains the number of units that must be produced to achieve the estimated sales target, like I spoke about the masks. The production budget depends on the sales forecast and the planned amount of finished goods inventory. But in the case of masks, it was not planned. It was converting those uncertain conditions into opportunities. Insufficient inventory will lead to losses in terms of money and time, whereas excess inventory will lead to blockage of funds. So it has to be balanced in such a manner that there should not be too much of surplus or too much of deficit. So production budget intends to plan the volume of output to be produced and the cost of production. It also includes the units of finished goods which are required to be kept as safety stock. Then we have overhead budget. Overhead budget, it shows the estimated fixed and variable cost involved in the process of production. It does not include the cost of direct labor and direct material, which are budgeted under separate budget. Overhead expenses includes the electricity, the rent, the depreciation, the bills, etc. There is a direct labor budget also. It includes the cost of labor required to produce the estimated quantity of goods to be produced. It contains the estimated time to produce 1 unit to produce and the rate of wage to produce 1 unit. Now coming to the most important part. This was the first part, but we are discussing it later because this is the most important kind of a budget which is essential for an organization, specifically NGO. When we talk about the cash budget, it is required to carry every other function such as purchase, raw material production, payment of wages, everything. Every kind of activity, every kind of the budget prepared for production, direct labor, raw material, overhead costed, everything requires cash. Therefore, cash budget forms the basis for other functional budgets and it contains the possible receipts of cash from various sources and the expected requirement of cash for meeting various obligations. The purpose of cash budget is to indicate the estimated surpluses or shortages of cash while indicating the cash position of an organization, any kind of an organization. So after doing all these activities of framing different kinds of budget, a master budget is prepared. Now this master budget is very important for the organization because after preparation of all kinds of functional budgets, capacity budget, the time period budget, a master budget is prepared, and this includes the information from all the functional areas to derive the estimated profit and loss of an organization. Therefore, master budget intends to reflect the estimated financial position of the organization or the financial health of the organization. It tries to reflect the financial planning and the strategic decision-making process of the organization. So overall, it is a very important kind of a budget because this carries all the information from different areas. Whatever the short budgets are there, all such information is incorporated in the master budget. Now this is all about the classification of the budgets, and in the next session we'll see some of the techniques of budgeting and why it is important to have those techniques for preparing a budget for an NGO. Thank you so much.